and welcome to another episode of Supporting Family Resiliency, Community Voices, Community Perspectives. I'm Deb Ottman, the host of this series, and today I have a special guest with me, Deqa Farah. Deqa comes to us in many different roles. She is a registered dietitian and will be completing another degree, this time in nursing, at the end of this summer. She is a former Lend Fellow here at the University of Minnesota, and most importantly, she is the mother to 2 children, a son and a daughter, and comes to us also in part from the Somali community here in the Twin Cities. So welcome, Deqa. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Deborah.
I'm really pleased that you're able to join us. This was a podcast we set up a couple times to try to work around your many different responsibilities, and so I really appreciate you being here. So let's just get started. We know that we've been focusing on how we build family resilience, and so from your perspective, what does resiliency mean to you? More importantly, how did you come to this definition?
I've never really thought about that, but I think for me, when I think about resiliency, I think about my mother and her mother and my sisters and my family members, the mothers that I know, and that it's just the just knowing, not wanting to be identified as a victim, always maintaining a positive attitude, always making sure that they are, surviving everything that is coming towards them. That to me is resiliency.
Wow, that is so powerful. And what really resonated with me as you shared your definition is the idea of choosing not to be a victim and choosing strength. And so say more about this. You obviously have had some very influential and powerful role models in your life. And so what offered these women, as well as yourself, strength? What were the factors that built their strength?
I think some of the biggest factors were the sense of community. I always, for me, my biggest hero and my biggest role model is my mom. And you can't imagine the community that she has in terms of women that are in all types of life, all types of walks of life, and they do different things, but they support each other. They're there for each other no matter what. They are continuously problem solving in their own way. They're continuously coming up with realistic, solutions to their problems that only they can come up with.
Right. So the thing that you've touched on, and it has been a theme throughout all of the podcasts that we've done so far, and that is the idea of having community, and I think more specifically the notion of having relationships. And what's implicit about what you've talked about is the fact that there is trust and there is comfort in that relationship, or the number of relationships one has. And so as you think about that as being the core to strength, to resiliency, to being able to approach things from a positive perspective, as you consider your current role as a registered dietitian, as you think about it as a Lend Fellow, as a mother in preparing to go into nursing, how do you think about these characteristics and applying it to the fields that you find yourself in, or whatever role you happen to be in at any given time?
For me, I think I am always one that, there is a pretty big, palpable stigma when it comes to children and families with disabilities in our community. And everybody that I speak to and when I'm in the community, I try my very best to have conversations and discussions and just talk to my friends and my community in a way where having a disability does not automatically make you a victim. Having a family member with a disability doesn't automatically shut down all the opportunities that you have. That we've to empower mothers, to empower families, to empower. As I go into the field of nursing, I want to empower my patients. I don't want to give them
We have a visitor.
Yes. That's my son happily squealing. So I just think what I've learned from my community, my mom and her community is that first, it's empowerment. It's looking at difficulties and distresses and the challenges of life, which we all have as, people that can withstand, so to speak, the rain. If we work together, we can come up with solutions. Yeah. And the other thing is to really work hard to fortify those community ties, fortify the relationships.
Yes.
Because that's really what holds us together. When I was lost and I felt like I had no idea what I was. When my son was diagnosed, I felt like I was in a dark cave, but I found my community. I found my people, and I found it's almost like they handed me a candle and here's the way. And this is how to get to where you want. These are the resources that are available. This is what you need to make sure that your son has the best possible outcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I love the image that you just shared of being given a candle. And, that's so visual. But it also reminds me that one of the things that we as parents who have a child that may not be neurotypical, that may have a different learning profile, sometimes I think what happens is that becomes the identifier of that child, and by extension for us as a parent, it's the focus on the disability, and we forget or we are not encouraged to celebrate and embrace the joy that being a parent is, even if our child is someone that doesn't fall into that typical developing category, right? And it sounds like being given the information that you needed by finding your people and becoming empowered to do that, you were able to embrace your son and who he is in all his different facets, not just this one identifier. And I think that's another piece that you've shed a light on. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. I think that's part of where our strength comes from, is when we can find happiness and joy.
Right. You said it beautifully. I think when you don't have information, it's really hard to choose how you want to live your life and what kind of relationships that you want to have with the people that you love. That's what my life's work is, kind of just making sure that people have choices, because it's important. I don't want someone to think that only choice option A is the only thing that's available. There is a world out there. Yeah.
And so I think one of the things too, and I'm curious how you see this. We know that having a child with a disability in and of itself can be a challenge. And for some, You alluded to this, particularly depending on maybe the cultural influences or the community. It may be seen as an even bigger challenge, or there may be perceived barriers because of that disability. And we know that COVID did nothing but amplify whatever those challenges and barriers may be. And so certainly when someone is under stress and feels challenged, we know that our mental health and our emotional well-being can be impacted by that. As you think about your before and after, in the before of not knowing resources, not knowing where your community was, or knowing where to turn for answers, and you think about the after and how well-resourced you are in relationships and knowledge and this feeling of self-empowerment, I'm curious to know how you feel that impacted your relationship with your child.
That's a really good question. I think sometimes when we don't know enough about a certain things, we fear it. We're scared of it.
Okay.
I think I was scared. I think I was anxious. I'm still anxious, but less anxious now. Sure. But it was fear of the unknown, fear of what's happening, fear of what the future holds, fear of just really little information of what my son was going through. Sure. And now, I think it's through these training programs, and I did, LEND. I also did Partners in Policymaking, which was another amazing program.
Yes.
I think through the amazing people I met and the amazing guest speakers, and just through that learning and that teaching, and then also really, understanding my child as a child. He's a child. He is a typical 8-year-old. He is, neurodivergent, but he's still Haroon. He's still my child, right?
Yes, of course.
So it's when you have the wrong information or lack of information, you fear it. And when you fear something, you try to run away from it. Even if it's a relationship and a person that you love, you just, so I always tell everyone, and including myself, if you don't understand something, try to learn as much try to learn as much as possible from them or of that subject, because then you'll be able to have the choice to say, hey, this is not how I want my life course to be. This is not who I am.
Yeah.
So I think after, going through those programs and, meeting some amazing people that really changed the perspective of how I look at my family as a unit and my relationship with my amazing child, I think I figured out where I want to be and what kind of parent I want to be. Just like how, parents of neurotypical children also choose what kind of parent they want to be.
Absolutely, because each child is unique unto themselves, right? And so regardless of the profile, they're their own little person. And so, I'm thinking a lot about what you said earlier about your community and the fear and maybe the taboos that may be associated with being neurodiverse or having a diagnosis of a disability. And so as you think about this, wearing both hats of a professional who has a lot of wonderful training and education behind you, and then thinking of it as a mother within your own community and understanding both very well, how would you speak to other helping professionals who are working within the systems that are designed to support and walk alongside families, especially maybe families that come from a community or a culture where there really are there's more resistance to this. What would you suggest that we might do differently, or how might we as the helpers better support the families that we are working with?
I think it's a twofold kind of possible way this could be done. One, I think the University of Minnesota and ICI does a great job at this, just leaning onto your resources.
Okay.
Your resources, it's really important to build your resources to include those individuals from the community that reflect the community that you are helping. And then the second part is really just to be curious. Just to be curious. Just ask.
I love that. That's, having done a lot of work in the world of infant and early childhood mental health, that is one of the most important characteristics.
Yeah. I would add one more, actually.
Yeah.
I think to be fearless in when you're because I think, and I'm not, immune to this too. When I'm unfamiliar with a certain situation, I have a little tickle in my throat and my hands start to sweat. But I think it's really just being fearless in your pursuit to help this person and to make sure that you provide them the best service that you are really there to provide. So don't be scared. I think it's just ask. A lot of people would from my community, from other communities, being curious to don't just ask the questions that are it's on your form. Ask more kind of ask them if it's okay to ask.
And that gets back to where we started, is we can't depart from the form and have the comfort of and have that trust to be able to ask and to know that we're going to get an honest response unless we've developed an authentic relationship, right?
Yes.
And so to really show up authentically, to own our own biases, our own blind spots as professionals, those are the things that we maybe as professionals and as the helpers need to be thinking about more intentionally. And it's not easy work, is it? But it's so important. It's so important. Yeah. The other thing I'm wondering about is if we see that a primary caregiver, particularly a parent, is struggling and is not able to call upon or bring up those skills that we collectively call resilience. What are the things, so for example, this notion of being fearless, boy, that's powerful. How do you help cultivate fearlessness in a caregiver? What would you suggest to the helping professionals? How do we do that?
I think it would be to support the caregiver in any way that you can. Because if you think about it, it's easier said than done, right? To be fearless.
Oh boy, is it ever. Sure.
If you don't have the right support system, the support services to actually pull from yourself to be fearless, then
yes,
you're putting out fires left and right? And all of them are going to burn the house down, so to say. Right. It's hard to be that fearless parent or that fearless caregiver when you are constantly, like I said, putting out fires. So I think in terms of professionals and how you can help that caregiver be resilient is really just to show up.
Yes.
To show up, to say, how can I help you? And sometimes, I always joke, I'm like, I get back to people maybe 10 days later, but it's really not because I'm over here, on watching some videos or watching maybe I am. Sometimes it's good to take a mental health day, but it's really because we are very, very busy. We are, so it's maybe making that extra call to just call in and say, hey, I'm just checking in on you. Have you reached out to, this resource? Do you need help? If you have the time and the resources to say, do you need help in connecting with this community resource? This is how I can do that for you. Just to take that extra step.
That extra step. That is really, that it sounds so simple. And I recognize too that what you're saying, it's easier said than done, but I think that is terrific insight to show up and to do those extra check-ins where and when we can,
yes,
in order to make sure that families are accessing what they need.
Yes. Yeah. And I understand, sometimes your work day can get kind of busy.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah.
But, just those days that you are able to take that extra step, you don't know how much it could help the person on the other side.
Right. Right. Yeah. And to have someone, no one is ever hurt by knowing that there is someone that cares about you out there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a great thing for professionals to know. Is there anything else that you would like to add as we think about, summarizing the conversation today? Is there anything else that you feel it's important for them to know? And you can speak from whatever perspective you feel is important, whether it's as a Lent Fellow or a parent or a healthcare professional. Is there anything else that you feel you would like other helping professionals to know?
I guess, for me, I try to separate the different hats that I wear, but sometimes they mesh together.
Oh, sure.
As I speak, I think, I think I'm just going to double down on what I said. I think it's, and for me, we all know that as individuals, we can make some difference, but as a collective, as a group of people that have kind of the same thought processes and, we have the same goals, we can make a lot of change. I think it's finding your tribe, finding those that have the same goals as you. Because there's a lot of us out here. I'm amazed at all the other Somali mothers that are doing amazing work.
Yes.
And we need to just find each other, and even professionals.
Yes.
Look out to your network. Who else is working and doing some of the amazing work that you're always working on? There's probably someone else that has the same idea, saying, who else can I look into?
Yeah, it's interesting because out of all the episodes that we've done, you're the first to say, be curious about other professionals within your network. Look for others who are like-minded and doing like activities. I love that. How about for families and parents? What would you like them most to know? What do you feel is most important for them to know?
I think kind of along the same lines. I think it's when we are dealing with something, it may not even be with our children. It might be something that we're dealing with. We think that we're alone in the world. We are the only folks that are having this challenge. But
yes,
you'd be surprised at how many other folks, how many other people are dealing with the same thing that you're dealing with.
Right.
Reach out. If it's, reaching out to your professional, your doctor, your social worker, a lot of some people might not feel very comfortable in social media, but just reach out to someone, and, ask questions, because more than likely you might not get the exact answer that you're looking for, but you might get to somebody or to something that might lead you to eventually what you're looking for. And isolation is really, and loneliness it can be detrimental to our health. And that's one thing that I always try to tell parents and tell myself, that there are others out there. The world is big. There are people that are looking to just get together and just talk about what's happening, that understand you. Reach out, be fearless,
Yes.
Make that connection, send that Facebook message, send that text message,
Right.
Do it now.
And I so appreciate you bringing up this idea of isolation and loneliness. And, that automatically makes me think about, that's because we are alone. We are one. Mm-hmm. And there's not only safety in numbers, there's strength in numbers. And there's what you were talking about before, that empowerment. And when we are empowered, that's when we can become fearless.
Exactly.
It's one of the tools that helps us to become fearless. It's difficult to be unafraid when we're feeling lonely and stressed and isolated. And so that is just that's a lovely and important notion that we should all be sharing.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And I'm there with everyone. I'm scared. I'm over. I shake. I triple think about doing things. But I think it's, like you said, safety in numbers. I want us to find each other. I want us to find, that tribe that helps us. So
I love that. Thank you so much. So before we end for the day, is there anything else that is on your mind that you want to share as we bring this conversation to a close, that you think is important? I think you've shared so much already.
I know. No, I really want to thank you, Deborah, for inviting me and giving, space for us to talk about these things that are important for this community, and for also the professionals that are taking care of this community and engaging with them. Because I think the more discussions that we have, the more we talk about things, we might not come, to a solution right away, but discussions kind of lead to ideas, and ideas lead to hopefully research, and research leads to policy change, and policy change leads to change.
Yes, amen to that. And on that, I am going to close our conversation. And again, I want to thank you so much. This was great. Thank you for bringing your son in. It made me smile throughout this whole conversation to hear him in the background. And I just appreciate so much the wisdom and the perspective that you brought today. So thank you, Deqa.
Thank you, Deborah.